Welcome to Wallbreakers, a podcast by emerging creatives for emerging creatives, presented by the Digi60 Filmmakers Festival. I'm your host, Bernice Romero De Gracia, a scriptwriting graduate from Algonquin College and an emerging content creator. From one emerging creative to another, the biggest creative block is breaking into a competitive industry. How can we break down those walls and root a stable foundation for our passion? Here at Wallbreakers, we sit down with Canadian artists to chat about the challenges they face in establishing a creative career and advice they have for those who have yet to embark on this journey. In this third episode, I chat with King Kimbit, a jack of all trades in spoken word, singing, and music production. As a daughter of a Vietnamese immigrant family, King prides herself in her musical artistry that roots in personal stories and social consciousness. Other than her wins and participation in spoken word and poetry events in multiple cities, King facilitates spaces advocating arts education for people to explore one's creative expression. I talk with King about this further, about finding one's individual voice. Hi, King. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to meeting you in person and finally having this chat together. So I wanted to officially start our conversation by first asking you, who or what were your inspirations when you first started building your creative career?
That's a big question. I think my parents really exposed me to a lot of Vietnamese music. Growing up as a child, there was Thế Hệ Trẻ, which was like a kids musical series, I guess. And then there was Paris by Night, which is like the adult Vietnamese music concert show. And yeah, that was a big deal. And Can Ly is a singer, a Vietnamese singer that my parents listened to a lot. And Jin Công Sung is a songwriter. And in Vietnam, songs are made more famous leading with the writer rather than different singers that might sing it. And then, when I got more into the English side of things or the culture here, Bone Thugs and Harmony and Immortal Technique were pretty big influencers for me. When I was in about middle school, I started listening to them. I'd even do, projects in school about, Bone Thugs and Immortal Technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got into Tupac after.
Right.
And, Destiny's Child was also a
It's
big
classic.
one growing up. Yeah.
I know that hip hop has been one of your biggest influences in terms of musical genres. Have there been any other genres that you like to mesh hip hop with in your work?
I guess what draws me the most to hip hop is the lyrical content, the poetry of it.
Right.
So poetry, would be an answer to that. Also blues. One of my friends said I make cowboy music. And I guess, yeah, because it's kind of bluesy and almost seeping into country sometimes. And yeah, more recently, I've gotten into gospel music. I sing in a gospel choir, the Academy Choir in Ottawa. And yeah, I'm a believer of God, and I find gospel is great in praise and giving appreciation.
You mentioned also earlier how your Vietnamese roots really shaped who you are as an artist and as a person. And since we're talking about finding one's individual voice as a creative, how was your personal experience, especially with coming from an immigrant family? How was your environment and upbringing shaped your creative identity and how you express yourself?
It's interesting because growing up, both my parents were musical people. my mom is a singer. She sang in like one of the only Vietnamese bands around her time in Ottawa, and my dad is like a wonderful guitarist, and yeah, my mom like doesn't really believe in a musical career,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's due to her upbringing and the information she has, and m- it's interesting because my dad once like told me I'm not a real artist because I make money from it. So
Oh, wow.
it's yeah, it's a very confusing place to be in. um yeah, and growing up too, I guess, as my parents were both survivors of war and were refugees uh after the Vietnam War. A lot of the music I heard growing up was about like wartime and stuff like that as
Mm-hmm.
well. So like very political
Yeah.
messaging, and yeah, I feel like I gravitate towards like more conscious hip hop or music in general, and that's the type of music I like to create as well.
Mm-hmm.
And and then I have like further learned that it's like important not to just address the issues that are happening, not just pointing out the problems, but also it's important to like have joy and like uplift and like lean towards like possible solutions and not just saying what's wrong.
I'm really sorry to hear that your father told you that you're not an artist because you're making money off of it. And but I think now, especially like in this age, I guess it's become more acceptable to make money off of things that we love doing rather than just gravitating especially towards those careers that quote unquote actually guarantee like money, whether it's like in more like business related careers and stuff like that. But did you kind of like embody that belief that your father had for a while, and did you have that process of trying to break out of it?
Yeah, I think for me comes more from a place of like a lack mentality and like a
Mm,
poverty mindset.
yeah.
Um, not what my father said in particular, but the issues that I have that come with that. Um, yeah, like starting out, like I would do stuff for free because like I didn't know better. Nobody knew who I was, and also like that was fair for exposure when nobody knows who you are. But like over the years, like as I progress in the field and in my career, I find I'm still like struggling sometimes to acknowledge my worth and experience and skills I've developed over the years, and yeah, and interesting to like equate art with money and
Mm,
being able to make a meaningful exchange out of it. But I've learned more recently to be more accepting of abundance and to understand the energy exchange that's happening and how money is also like a form of energy. So yeah, I'm like working on being able to accept more
yeah.
and being able to ask for more too, because like exposure's only cool when you need it
Yeah, yeah.
as a form of payment, right? I think I'm doing all right. I'm like as I'm more aware and acknowledging that I have these blocks, then I can like get through them.
I come from a family where they are supportive of what I do, but I guess like at the same time, like it's also just a pressure that I put on myself where, we're taught that a creative career isn't really going to take us as far as any other career. And I'm also curious to know about like your particular experiences, like with those with having that kind of mindset. Like, have there ever been moments where you were just like, maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I should just move on to something else?
Well, I've always had like other jobs. It's like this time in my life is the first time I'm actually like doing art stuff only for the
Mhm.
most part. I did get a job in the government for a year and a half. I just left in May because I was thinking like, okay, the money is like pretty decent, the benefits are pretty good, right? But it just wasn't the space for me,
Mhm.
and I think having that type of income, which was like the first time I ever had that type of income, um, it was an adjustment to not have it anymore, but also having faith does so much. One of the reasons I think that I'm, doing pretty all right now is because I have faith, because I believe that I can, not just like on a logical surface level, but like a deep feeling of like I can do this and I'm worth it and it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like when we have that fear in the back of our mind, like that draws us back. And it's like it's hard to navigate, right? Because like, we
Mm.
feel how we feel until we don't. That quote, like one of my producers said it. That was the first time I heard that. We feel how we feel till we don't. Shout outs to Gold Stripes. But he said that in like a totally different context to me,
Yeah.
but I find it very like relevant and
Emotions are just such a strong like thing. Like, personally, like I tap into my emotions a lot, especially like in my work. But there's that process of just having to face the negative side and the vulnerability of it all. And just with your personal experience, like, I feel like there's a lot of like narratives, like growing up in an immigrant family, that that you have instilled in you, and some you're trying to unlearn, like, at the
hmm
same time. But I mentioned this in an earlier episode, where there's a lot of strength that can be found, like, in that vulnerability.
yeah, absolutely. And emotions are, a big part and a big driver for us. We sometimes like act, well, actually I think a lot of the times we act out of emotions, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's been frowned upon a lot, and we've been pressured to think like we can only be logical, like we shouldn't be emotional, but
Yeah.
emotions like tell us so much. It's information, right?
Yeah.
So what we do with that information is up to us, and we just got to figure out like what these emotions mean, but like also not right away, because we need
Yeah.
to like
You need to process
give
them
them
first.
space to
Yeah.
to just be and process them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because when emotions like first spring up, like, they feel like kind of impulsive at first, right? That you
hmm
need that time and space to let those emotions breathe before you look into the logical,
Yeah,
objective
exactly.
side of why you're feeling a certain
hmm
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called emotional bypassing. Well, I know there's like spiritual bypassing. I'm just assuming that emotional bypassing is the term for that because it makes sense to me. But yeah, I feel like I've done that a lot. Like I've analyzed my feelings more than just like let them be. Um yeah, I'm working to like,
Yeah.
just let them be, cuz you have to do that before you can really read the information, right?
Mm-hmm. How have your like experiences and the vulnerability that you felt, how has that shaped your lyricism in particular?
Yeah, I think some of my stuff is pretty raw, and sometimes like I'll just say things the way they are in like the most simple language, and I find that makes things more accessible sometimes, right? Like when you just say things in a language that most people can access, rather than like being academic or intellectual about it. And then, yeah, there's times too when I try to like make it beautiful.
Mm.
And finding like ways to describe things that, that can like make people see it, or take different scenarios or analogies, I guess, and use that to help people understand, or like, yeah, sometimes also I just have to express, sometimes we just need to express, and that's valid too. We don't always need for people to understand it.
I'm also curious to know, because like I feel like it's a little paradoxical, but like I'm always like talking about how being an artist is a continuous like work in progress, and I guess you'll never really like fully like define like your creative identity, because you're always growing and you're always improving, right? But was there ever like, were you able to like ever reach that time like in your creative career where you at least like felt confident, like this is who I am, these are a mix of who I am?
I think I'm still working on that, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting better. For example, like, in the past year or something, somebody called me like a gospel artist, and I'm like, oh no, I don't like make gospel, but I sing in a gospel choir, but like I do the thing, and
Yeah.
like someone called me out on it. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And then and then like recently ish, talking about acting, it's like, oh, you're an actor, and I'll be like, oh, not really, but like I've been in films, I've been in theater, I've done the thing,
Yeah.
and I do the thing. So I need to like stop dimming myself down, and still working on it.
Yeah. I feel like a common theme that's been coming up like in this podcast with all the episodes is imposter syndrome. It's so
Yes.
hard to break past that, and especially when you're first starting like in your career. Like I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but you have to be your own biggest fan, because no one else is going to push you unless you push yourself, really. Yeah.
And like, I feel like a lot of that is like a deep rooted like unworthiness that we feel.
Yeah.
That like is a really big pusher of imposter syndrome. Yeah, even like today, my friend was like, she has a yoga retreat going on, and I was like, you should like send it to your yogi friends who can put it up in their studio, and like tell these different organizations that they can share it. And she's like, I don't know, I'm shy, but she's like great at what she does.
Yeah.
She's like collaborated with these organizations and people in like different ways.
Yeah.
And I had to like pep talk her. I'm like, just ask, like, you're fine.
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is they say no.
Yeah.
So it's funny how it's easier to like do that with our friends, I guess, seeing it from the outside rather than like believing it in ourselves.
Every creative can definitely resonate with that. I feel like even the most confident like person has their insecurities and things that they're unsure about, but it's again, it's just a constant like work in progress.
The unworthiness, it's like it was planted in us, right? That's not, I don't think that's a natural occurrence. The word unlearning comes to mind, but
yeah.
I've had someone, Mindfulness Megan, talked about like not really trying to unlearn, but learning to like work with the fact that that's our actual belief and thought of things.
Yeah.
Because we can't like unlearn it per se, right? We need to learn more ways, or learn more about that and like why it is, rather than like erase its existence.
Yeah. Well, like putting that like into consideration, like what is the creative process that like you go through, especially when it comes to writing your lyrics and writing your music?
I have different processes, I guess. A big thing for me is like thinking of lyrics like while I'm commuting, or like thinking of melodies while I'm commuting. And I sometimes I write them down when I'm smart. Sometimes I'll be arrogant and be like, "Oh, I don't need to write it down. I'll just remember later."
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't sometimes, regrettably. Yeah, commuting is like a big part. Like whether it's on the bus within the city or walking around, or like on a plane, or traveling elsewhere. Um, Another thing I like to do is like collaborate with people, have ciphers and like freestyle sessions and see what happens there. Yeah, sometimes I'll like hear a beat and then come up with something to that. But a lot of the times I think I'm very message driven. So I
Mm-hmm.
think about like what it is I want to say, and how can I say it in like the most beautiful way, the most receivable or digestible way, depending on the mood I'm going for.
It definitely takes a while to, find that routine and that process that works for you, because it's so like it depends on every person, and it's different for everyone.
Yeah. And I've heard that creatives need time and space to do nothing
That's
in
true.
order
I
for them
agree.
to like,
Yeah.
recharge, I guess, and have time and to do stuff with the ideas, or time to have ideas in the first place. Um and like also we need to make time for it. Like I know I can't be like, you're going to write a poem right now, or sometimes I can. Let's not downplay myself. But also it's important to like, yeah, make time for it. It's like, hey, I'm going to give myself like a 3-hour block to play guitar, or like to try to write something and come up with lyrics, and yeah, just make space for it.
It's definitely like the exploration of it all. You need to find that courage, I guess, if that's the right way to say it, to explore new
Mm-hmm.
things and to be willing to suck at it when you first start.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
My producer Gold Stripes as well, he's said that like I think people are just afraid to like make bad music. Um yeah, cuz I think we are afraid of like what people are going to say, and like how are they going to perceive this and stuff. So yeah, what you said is like right on. Like we just need to be okay with whatever comes out sometimes, but not need to make it perfect.
hmm when you're thinking about like one's personal experiences and the things that people go through, like how can from that like jumping off point, how does one person like brand themselves and make themselves like stand out in an industry that's so competitive? Yeah, I wanted to hear like your thoughts or advice that you have on that.
I don't know about advice, cuz like I for me, I came into hip hop when there was like not really many Asian people doing it, let alone Asian women. So I think being an Asian woman in hip hop in Ottawa especially, like that alone makes me stand out. Um the things I say and the things I talk about, like I like to deliver messages that aren't usually delivered, or like bring into awareness of things that would be helpful to know, that people might not usually talk about.
Mm-hmm.
um I think, yeah, but I think like the key to that is just being yourself, because nobody is you. Like
Yeah,
literally, you're the only
you're the only
one.
one.
Yeah,
You're
you're the
yeah,
only one who's you. Exactly.
yeah,
That's how you can stand out and just like show people you, right? Because if you're you, yes, but if you're hiding, like no one's gonna know.
yeah, yeah.
How will they know?
And I think like going back to what we were talking about earlier, when a creative is trying to find their unique identity, that the one that's going to make them like stand out, they think that it's just one specific thing. But the thing is, like, humans are so multifaceted and multi-layered that we are a compilation of different things and different personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
So like what advice do you have to, like, I guess, like, find that balance and be more open to different sides of ourselves, especially because not all sides of those are like positive, right? We
Right.
have our faults, we have our insecurities.
That's true. Yeah. I think like thinking in binary in general, like boxes us in. So getting away from that, like knowing, like recognizing duality, but knowing that there's a spectrum for
Right.
literally everything.
Mhm.
And accepting that, like we exist as a human. Like we have good days and bad days. We'll do
Right.
things we're proud of. We'll do things we might not be so proud of. But like not diminishing that whole person, and we have to like love ourselves as a
Yeah.
whole entire being,
Yeah.
even when things don't feel great.
Yeah.
Even when like we do things we're not happy with.
Mhm.
So like giving ourselves grace and being merciful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling some of my friends this, but I'm in a stage of my life where I'm embracing like two really like opposing sides of like a spectrum of my emotions, like just the chaos of it all, just feeling both extreme happiness but also extreme like doubt and anxiety about the future at the same time, especially
Yeah.
as an emerging creative. But it's better to just embrace those emotions really, rather than
Yeah.
push them away.
Yeah, and one time when I was attending a Sema space, which is like a space for Sufi whirling, it's a type of meditation, and like I got really emotional. It was, I think, around the time when my dad had passed, and I was crying at this space uncontrollably. I was, yeah, just sitting down and crying, and it was in that moment I realize that grief and gratitude can exist in the same space. And yeah, I felt like that opened me up to a lot. Like you can be sad that something's done, for example, and like be grateful that you experienced it. Um so yeah, like just giving space to things to be instead of being like, "Oh, but this is this right now, so it can't be that."
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
yeah, not trying to like shut things down.
I'm definitely in that process of just embracing that I can feel both extremes like at the same time, and that's completely normal because everybody goes through the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to end the episode by asking you to envision your younger self or the version of yourself that once started your creative career. What would you want to tell them, and how would you reassure them that your journey is going to be okay?
Hmm. You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're going to learn a lot and just be open to learning a lot. Yeah, you never know too much. Like, there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
And just keep being open to learning. You don't have all the answers, and you never will. But try your best.
No, that's very true. But yeah, I learned a lot just from like our conversation, King. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here and talk to us and be on the podcast. Like I super appreciate everything that you've shared with us, and I think everybody else is going to appreciate everything that you said too. So
Thank you so much for having me. I'm learning a lot too,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for engaging with us in this episode. To learn more about Digi60, visit us at digi60.org. Till next time, keep on emerging, and I'll see you on the other side of the wall.